PlayStation 4 and Xbox One time is finally coming to an end, and with that we can finally look back and see the best games and worst games of the last few years. I'll be going through games that released from November 2014 to now, because I would still kind of say that we're still a little bit in a generation, but not really. It's kind of a weird gray area that we're currently in. Regardless, it's time to look back at what I believe is the top 25 video games of the previous generation. Now this list will go into consideration what is my list and what is my favorite games, but there are going to be a few games there where I either didn't really play that much, or I don't really know too much about, or I personally didn't even like it, but I can still recommend it based on the impact that it had. There are going to be a few games like that. There's going to be a few games where I did not personally like, but I know everyone else likes it, and I know how big the impact was, and that's kind of what it's based on. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean it's not a good game, it just means I didn't like it. Of course, this is still going to be my list, and every single one of these games I have had a personal experience with. So with that being said, let's start the list with number 25. Coming in at number 25 is Horizon Zero Dawn. Coming out in 2017, Guerrilla Games made this PlayStation 4 exclusive to recently, where it's now finally on Steam. In Horizon Zero Dawn, you control Aloy in a third-person open-world environment where you kill robot dinosaurs. Though you kind of have to be stealthy about it, because if you just attack them head on, you're going to have a bit of a bad time. Now, admittedly, not the greatest fan of this game's story, and it has been a while since I played it, and to be honest with you, I didn't finish it, but I did do every side mission, ironically enough. This game looks absolutely tremendous. It is one of the best looking games even to this day. It came out in 2017, and these graphics are still phenomenal. And there also is a little bit of a loot system in this game, which is why I did all the side missions, if I remember right, because I wanted the best bow and arrows in the game. The reason why it's not higher on the list is because it's still a generic open world game, and this is kind of a generation of generic open world games. Granted, this is one of the best games from that era, so I guess good for that. I highly recommend anyone to play Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is a great time, fantastic gameplay, unique enemies, because every enemy has their own weak spots, weak points and weak things, weak arrows, everything. I highly recommend Horizon Zero Dawn. Coming at number 25. Coming in at number 24, coming out in September 2014, which reminds me, I guess I don't know when these consoles came out, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor is a third-person open-world game. Again, we're going to hear that a lot, because every game seems to be that in this era. Admittedly, another game where the story didn't really do it for me. In this case, this game had a great gameplay thing called the Nemesis system. This Nemesis system was a game changer. The Nemesis system tracks any orc who are the main enemies of this game and will upgrade them or promote them based on what they do, whether that's killing other players, surviving against a player, or killing other orcs. And you can kind of manipulate that within the game, and that is just a game changer when it comes to AI in general. It is so much fun to do that. The combat in this is great, a little awkward sometimes. It has a little bit Assassin's Creed stealth going on, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I'm not hating it either. Probably would like it now better if I went back and played it again. The game did have a sequel, but I don't think Shadow of War is nearly as good as this. But I will say I did not play Shadow of War. I just played Shadow of Mordor for 3 days straight. Like, I never slept, and I just played Shadow of Mordor 3 days straight when it came out. I didn't have a YouTube at the time, sorry, we don't have footage of it. But Shadow of Mordor, fantastic game, absolutely fantastic just for gameplay alone. I don't know much about the story. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings guy, sorry about that. But I cannot stress enough how good the combat and gameplay and the Nemesis system is in Shadow of Mordor. Number 23, bit of a controversial pick, but to me it is Halo 5. Now, people tend to not like this game, and I think this was actually my game of the year, despite having a game that came out that year in my top like 15 or something, but that's okay. The game came out on October 27th, 2015, and the story of this game was kind of short, kind of misleading. But the gameplay of this game is where I really draw the line here. The gameplay in Halo 5 is fantastic. I cannot say enough about the multiplayer, particularly, forgot the name of the mode, but it's that, what is it, like 6v6 mode, and it's like elimination, and you're in this, like, these weird untextured maps that change all the time. That was so much fun. There was some people upset about microtransactions, but you can earn them not playing or not paying the game. You could just earn them by playing the game, and it didn't really do much, so I don't know why people really freaked out about them. The gameplay of Halo 5 is so good. Like, it is so good. you not only did they finally catch up to other games in terms of being able to sprint, being able to dash through walls, the gunplay in it is just fantastic. You can only carry 2 weapons, which I think is also another thing where people are kind of like, not as good. But overall, the gameplay, this is the best gameplay wise Halo. It might be one of the worst story wise, but to be honest with you, Halo 2, which for much praise it get, didn't really have a very good story, but the multiplayer was so good. This is kind of a similar situation. It's even second in another trilogy. I don't know why people hate this game so much. Halo 5's gameplay is fantastic, and if you want to play multiplayer for Halo, this is the game you play it on. Or you play MCC and play like Halo 3, which is still probably the best Halo of all time. But Halo 5 is a fantastic game, and while we're waiting for Infinite, which will, God knows when that will come out. Hopefully it'll come out on PC, because Halo 5 is not on PC yet. Halo 5 will do well enough to get you through, at least through multiplayer wise. Story wise, we're not going to worry too much about it, but Halo 5 multiplayer is so good enough to be number 23 on my games of the generation. Coming in at number 22 is actually a game I didn't really like, but the impact of this game was absolutely massive. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. On the Nintendo Switch, pretty much the reason why people get Nintendo Switches, even though it also came out for the Wii U. So I just want to keep that in mind as well. In March 3rd, 2017, people got to play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And it's another open world game. Imagine that. You're the era of open worlds, ladies and gentlemen. You explore Hyrule in a non-linear gameplay, which means you can really do anything you want right from the beginning. Now, you probably shouldn't go on and attack the final boss of the game right from the start, but you can if you really want. You can pretty much do anything, and you really have to play with the mechanics to actually beat this game. It is a little slow, which is why I personally didn't like it, but that's perfectly fine, because most people that play this game pretty much give it a 10 out of 10. Let's be real here. People love this game, and people so much they want another game like this. Legend of Zelda is going into a open world era, I believe would be the best way to say it, and I pretty much feel like this is going to be a template for a lot of other games to copycat in the future. You have puzzles in this game, you have enemies in this game, you got a deep lore in this game. The impact of this game outweighs what I personally think about it. This game's impact is through the stratosphere. If you haven't played this game, give it a shot, because most people love it, even though I didn't. Most people give it like a perfect score. Number 22 goes into Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Number 21 is Bloodborne, a game which is a Souls game without the title of a Souls game. Bloodborne is fantastic at gameplay, fantastic at sound design, and absolutely mind-numbingly hard for someone like me who hasn't really ever played a Souls game in his life. I also didn't finish this game because, let's be real here, I got scared of the guys with snake heads. I can't do that. I can handle hard, I can handle scared, I can't handle both at the same time. Bloodborne is an action role-playing game. It's open world-ish, but not the open world like other games. I would say more of like a free roam game would probably be the best way to say this. You basically have a bunch of towns you go to, and you can go wherever you want in that, but there's no like open world stature to it. You pretty much just go straight through it, maybe go a couple loop rounds, but nothing crazy like that. It is very similar to Souls games to the point where it is a Souls game. Let's be real here. The player makes their way through different locations. They're all kind of gothic. You battle various of enemies that are all mind-numbingly hard. Bosses which are all mind-numbingly hard, like they're supposed to be. There's different types of items to pick up. There's some weird NPCs, weird shortcuts. Basically, you go right through the main story, and you die 500 times. I will say this game does a pretty good job of telling its story. And what I mean by that is it actually shows you instead of tells you. Yes, the NPCs kind of tell you what's going on in the area, but even better than that is not only are you hearing it from NPCs, you're also seeing everything in front of you and the craziness that's unfolding in front of you as well. This game has a fantastic atmosphere. This game has fantastic gameplay, even though it is mind-numbingly hard. If you haven't played Bloodborne, give it a shot. It's very hard. I think it was free not too long ago on PlayStation Plus. This is a fantastic game, fantastic atmosphere, fantastic graphics, even though it does look a little dated now. I think it came out in 2015, so it's just barely hanging on the early part of the generation of the hardware. But this game is, I would say this game is a dream come true to Souls players. Let's be real, I don't think any Souls game has really been bad. Bloodborne managed to be a fantastic game on its own while still maintaining all the characteristics of the other Souls games. fantastic game, Bloodborne, coming in at number 21. And now we have hit the top 20, and Naughty Dog finally makes its presence felt back when they were still making games that are respectable to its consumers. Coming out in 2016, Uncharted 4. The fourth game, in the Uncharted series, finally comes in at number 20. So Uncharted came out in 2016, and believe it or not, I didn't actually play it yet. I wasn't really a big fan of Uncharted. I played the first game, didn't really play the second game, kind of started it. I kind of dabbled in the games beyond that, not enough to really know what goes on, but enough to know what the idea of it is. I have heard so many fantastic things about this game, fantastic gameplay. It crashes even in like the opening of the game. That to me is like a 7 out of 10 just on its own. But another third-person action adventure game with platforming elements. You go through a story, players traverse special environments, special locations, and there's always like something new coming in Uncharted games. Like Uncharted games doesn't have like one set of gameplay loop. They have multiple loops that they randomly pop back on, but they don't ever overstay their welcome. Combat, you can use long range weapons. I'm actually reading the Wikipedia just so you guys know, because I don't know this game as much as I know others. The game has a good AI system in which hostile enemies react to any combat situation they're placed in. That's a big thing. There's dialogue tree, players to decide the outcome of story conversations, and it does not affect the story. Also, the game by itself looks fantastic. This came out in 2016, and 2016 was a fantastic year for video games. You're gonna see, I think, at least 2 games in the top 5. I'm actually looking ahead right now on my list. There are 2 more games from 2016, and they're both in the top 5. So for those people trying to get their time traveling going, 2016 is where you want to go, my dude, because I got 2 games in the top 5, maybe 3. I don't know when one of them came out. 2016, fantastic year for video games. You can also drive vehicles inside this game as well. We're kind of going all over the place, but that's okay. Uncharted 4 comes in at number 20. Let's move on to the next game before I go on a tangent about the other games in this year. Coming in at number 19, we have Wolfenstein: The New Order. Now, this game did have a sequel that was very similar, almost a damn near copycat to one another, called the Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. But this is the New Order, and this is the game we're going to be talking about, because New Order is better than the other Wolfenstein games in my opinion, although I have not played Wolfenstein 2. It's just a quick spoiler. Maybe we'll play it in the future. Who knows? So, an action-adventure game, first-person game, highly narrative this game is. So I was actually surprised by this game. I thought the shooting in this game, while it felt a little floaty, was fantastic. There's a kind of a stealth cover system in this game, although admittedly, I never really did very good at that, so were we ignoring that? There is a couple options in this game, and they do briefly change the story, but the story will always end up in the exact same spot by the end of the game. I cannot say enough about the narrative of this game. That kind of shocked me the most out of all this. This is basically what would happen if you had Doom with story, to an extent anyway. I really enjoyed dual wielding weapons in this game. This whole game is about killing the Nazis in the future. Basically, you go through a coma, and then you wake up, Nazis have taken over the world. You lost the World War. That's not good. The whole plot kind of revolves around a resistance, and you're probably the main important part of the resistance, because you are in every single game where there's a resistance. I was actually so shocked by this game's narrative. I did not go into this game thinking it's gonna be very good narratively. I thought it was gonna be like I really kind of just thought it was gonna be a very combat action oriented game with a subpar story, but really the story is probably the best part of this game, and that's saying something, because the gameplay is also really good. I do think the AI was kind of dumb, but if you have the money, there's a dual pack between the New Order and the Old Blood. Get them both and play them both. The Old Blood kind of goes off into a fantasy world more than this game is. This game's a lot more grounded, but I would still recommend both of them. The New Order, in my opinion, is better using the id Tech 5 engine. We'll get to some id Tech games later, but for now, number 19, Wolfenstein: The New Blood.
Wake up.
Coming in at number 18, it's my baby series. This series means so much to me, so much to my heart. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. I cannot believe we're in 2020, and not only did the Tony Hawk Pro Skater game came out, it was also really good. Oh my god. Remastering of the first 2 games, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, has all those levels, and while the levels in my opinion don't really fit to the gameplay style, because you can't have the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 play style, that was still the right choice to do, because we don't want to go back not manual. We don't want to go back to the part where you can't do spine transfers. We don't want to not be able to wall plant. The one thing I wish I could be able to do to make this game even better is get off your board, but we'll wait for that the next game. I hope Underground 3 comes out. This game brought life back in the Tony Hawk series. I cannot stress you how important that is. Tony Hawk had so many games, and for Pro Skater 1 and 2 to come back and slap them all in the face and say the king is back, win sports game of the year in 2020. Oh my god, this game is not quite perfect, but it's very close. Like, it's so close. I do think the online in this game and the replayability kind of lacked, which is why it's not higher. If this game had the old online style, had way more maps, because I don't know why they just didn't bother to add every single map from Tony Hawk. Really, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 to American Wasteland at least, because those are the best ones. Just like Thug Pro has. Thug Pro is probably still a little bit better this because you have the online playability, but offline, this game is so good. I just wish you got to play it more than once, because for me personally, as someone who's played through the series, this took me about 2.5 hours, and I was done with it. I didn't have anything left to do, which is the part that sucks. But for the pure gameplay wise, this is the exact physics that you want. This is the future of the game, and I can't believe that Tony Hawk is back. You can do everything. There's create a park mode. That create a skater mode kind of sucked, I'm not gonna lie to you, but Tony Hawk Pro Skater is back. This is the reason for it's back. This game was a breath of fresh air to me, man. This game made me smile. This game made Shawn Michaels unlose his smile. Like, I cannot stress you enough how important this game is to me. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 coming in at number 18. Woo! Coming in at number 17, we have Fallout 4. Now, admittedly, Fallout 4 probably didn't quite live up to its namesake. I do like how they released this game, though. They pretty much were like, hey, Fallout 4's coming. Also, later this year. Like, they let the hype for this game was so perfect. Like, they were like, we released, this is when we announced it. Here's Fallout Shelter to hold you over. Game will be out in November. The gameplay, I guess the core gameplay was pretty good. And apparently they had id Software control it, which kind of shocks me. I didn't know that. But what this game lacks is role-playing. And I think it's funny how it's so high on, and I'm making negative comments about it. There was always yes or snarky yes. That was kind of all you really had to the main story. But with that said, this game is fantastic. To explore the blown up Boston, Massachusetts was fantastic. The gameplay was pretty good. You can switch back between third person or first person. It was just lacking in role-playing elements, which is the only thing that really holds this game back. And I didn't actually play the DLCs. I wanted to do that, but my game got glitched. Also, this game has a lot of bugs. It's Bethesda. I mean, what do you expect? But there's a lot of stuff in this game to enjoy. From the power armor to the subpar story. The stories around the world weren't fantastic, but were good. But this game is a very enjoyable time. I didn't quite stay up for 3 days straight playing this game like I did Mordor. I did play it for 3 days, but I fell asleep. I actually had a crevice in my bed because of this game. Like, I played this game all the time. Fantastic game. Highly well deserved of any awards that it got. I don't know if it really did or not, but you can freely roam around the world, freely explore, pretty much do mostly what you want unless it's story based. Fantastic game. The shelter thing was fun. I just wish there was a little bit more in terms of dialogue choices. Not so much role playing, I guess, as I was saying earlier, but dialogue choices. Did I mention before we get any further that I didn't script this? This is all off the top of my head. That's always a fun way. That's probably why this video is gonna get downvoted, because I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. But there's a lot of stuff in this game to appreciate. The skill trees are pretty good, which is basically where the role playing comes in. You can be a melee guy if you want to. You could be a dumbass if you want to. You could be a sharpshooter if you want to. You can do all that stuff. It's just the actual story and dialogue choices were not very good. But that does not take away from the fact that this game is still a fantastic game, and if it's up for sale or something, because it's probably not very expensive now, it came out in 2015, buy it, because it is well worth the money, well worth of its 17th spot. Fallout 4, number 17. Coming in at number 16 was a game that kind of shocked me, to be honest with you. Coming out in the late November 15th, 2019, we have Star Wars Fallen Jedi Order. Now, it says in the Wikipedia that it was heavily inspired by Batman Arkham Asylum with a combat style of Metroidvania, which I guess I can kind of see. But to me, this was kind of more of like a half Souls game more than it was anything else. But a lot easier, obviously. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I've always repeatedly spelled it wrong and said it wrong. I've always said Fallen Jedi Order, which is also incorrect. I don't know, I always screwed that up. Fantastic game from the story to its gameplay. I do think the gameplay is probably a little bit better than the story, but this game has some really cool moments in it, such as the part of the game where you kind of go back and there's a flashback sequence in this game. To any Star Wars fan, that thing is just going to be like crazy good to you, as well as the ending of this game. The ending of this game is just amazing. It truly is. So you get certain points in this you get certain abilities and certain points in the story. You get 2 lightsabers if you want. You actually have to go and get it. There's like one part of the game where there's a side mission that you have to go get it. That's where it happens. There's also a lot of checkpoints, which is like the bonfires from Dark Souls, and they'll also respawn all the enemies. You can also get your abilities back by killing enemies that killed you, which basically this is like a mini Souls game with Star Wars coded over it. Fantastic game though. Cannot say enough about this game. From the graphics, this game is just insane. The story was kind of up and down. Great moments in the story. Fantastic game overall. Star Wars Fallen Jedi Order. Said it wrong there. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. There's where I'm saying, where I always said it wrong. Fantastic game from top to bottom. It's a love letter to a Star Wars fan, especially coming out Battlefront 2, which at the time was not in a very good state. I think that's in a better state now. But Jedi Fallen Order, I'm guessing they're gonna make some sort of sequel to it. I don't know how exactly, but fantastic game. Highly recommend, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. If you're a Star Wars fan, you've probably already played it, but if you haven't, check out my playthrough of it, because I played this game on my channel. Fantastic game coming from Respawn Entertainment. I hope to make another one. Not taste enough. Star Wars Fallen Jedi Order coming in at number 16. Coming in at number 15, starting the top 15, we have Doom Eternal. Coming out in 2020, Doom Eternal was one of the games I was highly looking forward to because I loved Doom 2016 so much. I was talking about how earlier the combat in Wolfenstein was so good. Well, this is combat perfected, or at least very close to it. Taking place after Doom 2016, we have Doom Eternal with a little bit more focus on the story than the previous game was. There's some third-person cutscenes, which personally I didn't really like, but the combat and kind of half platform parkour style that you kind of have to do with the combat, fantastic. The music in this game, Doom songs are fantastic, and while I do think this soundtrack is a step down from Doom 2016, I cannot stress this enough how great this game is. Doom Eternal is a shine in 2020, which really wasn't a very good year for most people. Doom 2020, fantastic game from head to toe. It's DLC, and there's only been one out of the release of this video, was fantastic. The Ancient Gods Part 1 was great. I don't know when Part 2 is coming out, and that took place after the campaign. This game did also have a multiplayer mode, which it's called Battle Mode, and I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. You play as either the Demon Slayer or Demon, and it's not very good. Like, it's awful. Like, I don't ever want to play it ever again bad. But Doom Eternal, from a combat perspective, from a gunplay perspective, one of the best games that I've played in terms of just an action game. Doom Eternal earned a spot here in the top 15, coming in at number 15 with a fantastic gameplay, fantastic gunplay, a little bit more focused on the story, which they're teetering on the edge of too much story for Doom, because Doom does not need a story. Doom needs just pure, in-your-face, unrelenting, heavy metal gameplay, and that's what this game will mainly do. There is a couple spots where I'm kind of like, I don't like this, stuff is slowing down, but Doom Eternal, fantastic game. I hate the Marauders. Number 15, Doom Eternal. Here comes a controversial pick. Number 14 is Fortnite. Now, depending on who you are, you're either really angry that this is this high, or you're upset that it's not number 1. But Fortnite is a game that actually came out in early access, and I think it's still in early access. 2017 was more of a zombie horde game, and then they added battle royale to this game, and then it became a cultural phenomenon with more than 125 million players in less than a year. This game took over the world, man. There was dances going on in this game. There was YouTubers and streamers that were never big that are now massive because of this game. And as much as I personally was kind of towards it, because I'm not a big battle royale guy, I'm gonna be real with you. Battle royale games, not to me. But oh my god, the battle royale game to this just took over. You cannot say enough about the phenomenon that this game was. There's little kids on 4th of July flossing because of this game. The gameplay of Fortnite basically has you drop down from the bus, pick up items, pickaxe and walls and stuff, build structures to help defend yourself, get into the little bubble, and be the last man standing. That's really all it is to it. and there's a bunch of skins and cosmetics and emotes that really blown the world over. But overall, as much as I'm not a big fan of this game, it is available on Windows, Mac, the Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 now, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, iOS, and Android. It has over 125 million players. As much as you might not like this game, you cannot deny, I just bumped the mic, I'm gonna leave that in there. You cannot deny how much this game changes the world, changes the landscape, for whether good or bad. Epic Games has themselves an absolute stellar game here. They're set for life because of this game. So number 14, Fortnite. Don't care if you don't like it, it's that much of an impact. You know, for all the people that really want me to play something hard and rage, I'm kind of shocked this game has not shown up. Coming in at number 13, we have the boss gauntlet of Cuphead. Now, Cuphead is a very hard game with a very happy tone to it, despite the story kind of being dark. Basically, you sell your soul to the devil, and now you have to fight a bunch of bosses and try to win your soul back. That's what I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't remember the whole thing story-wise, but the story's not important. Cuphead is an extremely hard game. You basically hold the button and you platform around, and there is platforming challenges in this game. It is not just boss fights as I remember, but the platform in this game takes the back seat. The bosses is what this game is all about. And this game came out in 2017 for Windows and Xbox One. Then it was later made on the PlayStation 4, the Switch, and Mac. Didn't know it was on Mac. But this game's animation style is unique. So the whole game was hand-drawn, and because of the way it's hand-drawn, it has that old school aesthetic feel. It's like a black and white Mickey Mouse cartoon. It's like Steamboat Willie, but in color. In fact, the art style of this game is just tremendous. And when you take the art style of the game, you take the boss fight and gameplay of this game, it is mind-numbingly hard, but holy crap, this game is fun, it's addicting, and while it's a little short, it is absolutely amazing for the run and gun style, the indie style, because I think only like 2 or 3 people made this. I'm looking through the names, they're all the same last name because they must all be families. Not many people made this game, but the aesthetic, the gameplay, the boss challenges make this game fantastic. Good enough for number 13 on my personal games of the generation list. To be honest with you, I didn't even realize this game came out in this generation. But coming in number 12, we have Toby Fox's Undertale. Now, this game became another cult phenomenon to the point where it actually got some Game of the Year, even though only one person made it. Now, the aesthetic of this game is very, very, what's the word to say it? Old school? Black and white, but that's kind of like the charm of this game. And to be honest with you, I haven't played this game very much, but you basically, I'm trying to describe this game. I don't really remember off the top of my head how to describe it. It's a top-down perspective game, old school game. You control a child, and you do objectives and go through the story with an underground world of talented caves with puzzles and enemies that all fight differently or something, and you can decide whether to kill or flee or befriend them. And the choices made by the player radically affect what happens in the game. To be honest with you, when you put it that way, it's actually almost perfect. And then if you play it again, the dialogue and everything will change. Undertale is a weird game, dude, and only one guy made this. That's what's crazy. One guy made this game, and it was an absolute cult hit to the point where, yeah, this game is number 12 for a reason. It's basically the perfect RPG game with a weird aesthetic that one guy made. That makes it crazy to me. I didn't know there's only one guy that made this game. Undertale was absolutely huge at release. It's still probably pretty huge. People play just Undertale for the rest of their lives, and it's good enough for number 12 on my games of the generation list. Coming in at number 11, another game that made a huge impact to this day, even to the point where their future games come out and people think they're fantastic even though they're not very good. Number 11 is The Witcher 3, an action role-playing game based on the book The Witcher series, which I actually have all of them except for one book, and I don't know which book that is off the top of my head. So Witcher 3, you play a witcher, a monster hunter, essentially going through and trying to find Siri is what I believe. It's been a while since I played this game. I didn't really enjoy this game, to be honest with you, but the impact of this game was huge. So this game was a big phenomenal in terms of their combat, in terms of the graphics in particular, in terms of horses standing on the houses. The game has pretty good AI, dynamic environments, a huge open world, dialogue that really affects the gameplay and stories and choices. Probably the best mini game of all time in Gwent, to the point where that game became its own game. There is a lot of stuff going for this game in terms of RPG elements, in terms of story elements, in terms of combat elements, in terms of side stories. The Witcher 3 and the expansion Blood and Wine, I believe it is, became such a cult phenomenon that no matter where you were, people knew this game. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because while this game was great, people suddenly thought CD Projekt Red were gods, and they're not. And that comes out with the next game, which you will not see on this list, by the way. But this game has fantastic gameplay, narrative, world design, visuals, and combat. There is a couple of technical issues with Witcher 3, but nothing huge. Good enough for number 11, just outside the top 10 of my top 10 games, or top 25 rather, games of the generation. We have reached the top 10, everybody. So, to start off this top 10, we have Marvel Spider-Man. Marvel Spider-Man was a game that was very anticipated upon release and actually got remade again for the PlayStation 5 with a new Peter Parker face. So, Spider-Man takes place in the Spider-Man world of New York, duh. But instead of just playing it just as a Spider-Man part of this game, you also have to play as Peter Parker, deal with his relationships, deal with the fact that he hasn't paid his bills yet, deal with his work and his job with Otto Octavius, who totally will not be a bad guy in the future. Deal with all this stuff. You not only do you have to be a crime fighter, you have to be a person in this game. And Spider-Man does a pretty good job at that. Now, the presentation of this game is what really sets us apart from a bunch of other games. The music in this game is fantastic. The attention to detail in this game is crazy. Web swinging around, he'll breathe heavily. Stop swinging around, he'll stop breathing heavily, he'll talk normal. Stuff like that in this game is all over the place. You can zoom in at a cup on the PlayStation 5 version and actually read the nutrition facts. That's insane. There are a couple weird stuff, such as the people out in the boats with the weird polygon stuff, which they actually added a note to in the remastered version apparently. Stuff like that. Just a love letter to the Spider-Man franchise is what this game is. Now, the gameplay is kind of up and down. Stealth is just terrible in this game. I don't know why people would ever defend it. The combat is pretty good for the most part. It's not as free-flowing as the Batman Arkham series, and I do think the Arkham series is actually a better game overall than this game. But that's not to say anything bad about this game. That's just saying how good those games are. Spider-Man, from a presentation standpoint, is fantastic. From a story standpoint, was a little bit boring in the second act there, and the last part of the game is just a little bit too crazy. But regardless of that, this game had me emotional. This game had me almost in tears. This game is fantastic from head to toe. It's amazing. Dare I say, it's an amazing Spider-Man game. Web slinging around hasn't been this good since maybe Spider-Man 2, and which one's better I don't really know, because this game does cheat a little bit where it's just kind of, you know, swinging on nothing above you. That does happen at times, but regardless of that, this game is fun to web sling around. It's fun for most part in combat. It is a little up and down at times, and the stealth is just awful. And the gadgets as well, I don't really remember using many gadgets. I remember using a couple of them, but they're not fantastic either. Now, every once in a while, you have to play as Mary Jane or Miles Morales in this story, not the Spider-Man Miles Morales. He's just regular Miles Morales in this game. That comes in the next game for PlayStation 5. And you kind of just walk around in those and maybe do some slight stealth stuff. And that is kind of a lull as well, but it's kind of cool to kind of break up the pace at the same time and really build these characters. This game does a fantastic job building the world, which is already pretty much massive and alive. You can take selfies with people, you can take selfies of a squirrel. Photo mode in this game is amazing. There is so many good things in this game that it's hard to say it all in a sort of short, compact amount of time that I'm using for these top 25. Keep in mind, I'm not doing any scripts with these either. This is just off the top of my head. I do have the Wikipedia up to kind of help me, but still. This game is a love letter to any Spider-Man fan, to any Marvel fan, dare I say any superhero or comic book fan. This game is a love letter to anybody that loves anything to do with Spider-Man. Coming in at number 10, Marvel Spider-Man 2018. At number 9. Now this might be kind of controversial considering it's very high up there on the list over some games that people probably love, but my number 9 is Sonic Mania. Now before we go into any further, there is no lie that I am a huge Sonic fan. I grew up on the Sega Genesis. My very first game I ever played was Sonic 1, probably the first game I ever beat as well. I did not really like Sonic 2, but I did have Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic Mania basically takes everything from those games, smashes them up, and says, here you go. Now, while the game has fantastic music, fantastic art style, fantastic design for the most part, and is very faithful to those very early Sega games, there is a couple problems with it. A, the levels are too long sometimes. I don't want to spend 9 minutes and 59 seconds just to die at the boss. The boss fights are kind of iffy, and it doesn't really have anything original. You basically just play through the old levels. There's a couple original levels, but that's about it. They do have Sonic Mania Plus, which adds a couple more characters that were pretty much gone from the Sonic series until recently. But regardless of that, Sonic Mania is a fantastic game, and I hope they make another one with a brand new levels. I don't even want them to make another one. I just want the guy that made it, with his Christian Whitehead, who made the mobile games for iOS of Sonic 1 and 2. They didn't make 3 and Knuckles, but that's okay. I don't think they just released them. Music in this game is fantastic as well. Now, I don't think it's as good as what people make it out to be. I do think T-Lopes did a fantastic job, but there is a couple things where I'm kind of like, I'm not feeling it. Regardless of that, Sonic Mania was fantastic, kind of bringing some life back into Sonic, just for Sonic Forces to bring it back down. That's kind of funny. But the faithfulness of Sonic Mania, from the animation in the trailer to the opening cutscene that shows up if you don't hit start, to the gameplay of this game, is just absolutely fantastic. And it makes me happy to say that Sonic Mania is number 9 on my Games of the Generation list. Number 8 is a Telltale game. You know, those episodic point-and-click adventure games? Yeah, this one's the funny one, aka Tales from the Borderlands. Now, there's no secret that I'm a big Borderlands fan, and while Borderlands 3 was kind of mixed for me, Tales from the Borderlands was supposed to set it up, and it kind of didn't. Tales from the Borderlands is one of the best stories probably in the Borderlands games, probably the best story in the Borderlands games, taking control of Reese and what was her name, Fiona. It's been a while since I played it. So there's 5 episodes. They're all fantastic episodes. They're all kind of funny too. There's a humor and dialogue comes through in Borderlands games, and it comes through really well in Tales from the Borderlands. Just almost perfect. There's a lot of conversation trees, not a lot of non-player characters, and the choices that are made by the player, which are oftentimes, but they really change the story events and what happens. Though I do probably believe that you probably end up in the same spot. And while this game was supposed to set up the future of Borderlands 3, it didn't at all. Like, there's no there's like one connection. It's not even that big of a connection. This game is a fantastic game from head to toe, with the voice acting, the love letter to the series of the games, the graphical style, which is not the same as Borderlands 2, even though it looks very similar. I'd probably prefer this style over Borderlands 3 graphic style, to be honest with you. The sound of this game is fantastic. The characters of this game are fantastic. The sound design, I already said sound design, didn't I? The voice acting is fantastic. Just everything about this game is great for anybody that loves Borderlands. And if most people do probably love that game, I do think there's probably some that don't, but as a whole, the setting of Tales from Borderlands is great. The story is great. It's funny. It's a good time to be had. If you haven't played it, try it out. If you don't like Telltale games, probably stay away from it. But regardless of that, there's strong characterization, a lot of emotional stuff. There's very creative things happen in this game. The writing is fantastic, and there's a lot of unexpected twists and turns in this game. Tales from the Borderlands comes in at number 8.
It took just 24 hours for us to lose control of the city. Tonight, Gotham's relying on one man to save us all.
Coming in at number 7, we have Batman Arkham Knight. Now this might be a little bit controversial because people really didn't like the Batmobile in this game, despite the fact that I think it is actually a very important piece of the game that was missing from the last few games, as well as the whole Gotham City as a whole. Yes, you can explore every part of Gotham City, and there's not very much loading in this game. You pretty much open a door and there's no loading at all. You're just automatically in there. And the cuts in this game are also real time, which means the custom skins that you get are going to carry over into cutscenes. And while that can get a little glitchy with some because he can't take his cowl off in a lot of these things, regardless as much, Batman Arkham Knight is probably the best way to wrap up the series, in my opinion. I do think City is probably a little bit better in terms of gameplay and story, but this game is still fantastic. And while the Batmobile gets a lot of praise and a lot of hate, who cares? Like, it's the Batmobile. He's a man. He's not a superhero. Get over it. You can still fly and glide through the city, which is even faster than now it used to be. You can also still strike, glide. The free flow combat is just as good, if not better, than it ever has been. And the enemies are even better. There's medics that can revive people. There's sword wielding enemies. There's brutes that are resistant to damage and have to be stunned. There's brutes with Gatling guns. There's more blades, just like there was in the other games. There's enemies capable of employing tactics to counter Batman's with the landmines and, you know, disabling vents and all that stuff. This game is a bit more challenging than the other games, and the time is a little different, but it's still fantastic. There's also double team takedowns with Robin and Nightwing and Catwoman. There's still the Riddler Batmobile stuff, which I'm not gonna lie, the Riddler Batmobile stuff is a bit of a letdown, and you still have to go through the Riddler challenges, which is still just a little crazy. You can still investigate crimes just as you could in Arkham Origins, though I think it only happens in the story one time. There's a voice synthesizer, which is odd, very odd, and the story of this game was pretty predictable. I think anybody who knows anything about Batman pretty much predicted the ending to the Arkham Knight was, but that's okay. The end of this game is fantastic. I don't want to spoil much, but it goes into the mind of Batman, and it's just great. The Joker, who isn't in this game but is in this game at the same time, basically he's in your head the whole game. And there was a big holy crap moment at one point in this game when that part gets revealed, so I probably just spoiled that for anybody, but that's okay. If you haven't played this game, play it. I don't know how it is on PC. When this game came out on PC, it was an absolute mess. I don't know if it's good now or not. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You still have the Batman challenges maps, which is just insane now, because if you download a character, you actually have to do those with those characters as well. And there's Batman, Nightwing, Azrael, Robin, Harley Quinn, Catwoman. There is a lot of characters here that you can play as. As such, there's also DLC that actually adds to the main story. Yes, they're just most wanted side missions, but they wrap up a lot of stuff that we haven't seen before, such as, off the top of my head, it wraps up the Mr. Freeze story, where Nora actually comes back. That's another spoiler for you. I guess I'm just going to spoil this game. That's okay. This game is fantastic, and while the Batmobile gets a lot of hate for its destructive tank stuff, you can really overlook it, because the story of this game is great. It is a good way to wrap up the Batman Arkham series. The gameplay is fantastic. It was really a technical masterpiece as well. Like, it looks great, and there's like no loading in the game at all, and I don't know why people kind of forget that. Just from a technical standpoint, as long as it's not on PC at a release, don't know how it is now, fantastic game, good enough for probably the best superhero game I've ever played, and good enough for number 7 on the best games of the generation list. Number 6 is probably a bit of a shocker, because I don't think anybody predicted this game being as big as it is. Number 6 is Rocket League, a game where you basically play RC cars that have speed boosts that can fly through the air a little bit with control and play soccer. That's basically the whole game. You have like 5 minutes to score as many goals as you can. There's a sudden death mode, and they keep adding stuff in this game. You can get items, cosmetics, all that stuff in this game. You can also destroy people, so there's some demolition derby elements in it. But overall, this game is really just remote control card soccer, and this game's talent level is crazy. So if you're really good at this game, you can do some crazy tricks and flips and fly through the air. And if you're really bad like I am, you have a hard time even remembering how to press X to jump. Not only is this game fun to play by yourself or with friends online, this game also became a huge holiday hit back in 2015, and it was also free for a month, so a lot of people have this game. Just absolutely amazing game, huge impact this game made. Rocket League, comes in at my number 6 best game of the generation. If you haven't played this game, give it a shot. It's just stupid fun, or it could be really serious for you. Just all over the place this game is, and in a good way though, in a good way. So number 6, Rocket League. So starting the top 5, we have Santa Monica Studios' God of War. God of War was a fantastic game in terms of combat. Bit of a difficult game, by the way. This game was a little difficult. It has an over-the-shoulder free camera, and it's not very open world, but it's sort of open world. It's kind of like in between. There was another game earlier on this list that was kind of like that, and I forgot which one it was. I want to say maybe Star Wars Fallen Jedi Order, where it's kind of the same sense of that, where it's not really open world, but you can always go back to levels. The game has a great story, and the story does kind of end on a cliffhanger, which was a bit weird to me, but that's okay. Coming out in 2018, you finally get to play as Kratos again and his boy, Atreus. The game has fantastic graphics in this game. I think the graphics of this game is one of, if not the best in PlayStation 4. It's up there with the best. There's like 2 games that maybe 3 games that can compete with it, being Ghost of Tsushima. Final Fantasy VII Remake could compete with it. Probably Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably the best graphical game, but this game's hanging with them, you know? And this game came out in 2018, so this game is a little old now. It's 3 years old, going on 4 year by the time this is out. This is probably be out in 2021. This game does have an untitled sequel coming out soon. We don't know about it yet. It says 2021 according to Wikipedia. I don't agree with that. I do want to play this game again, so this game might be out there in the future. And I did do a review for this game. It's one of the very first reviews I did. I think I got a perfect 10 out of 10. So you use the magical battle axe instead of his chain blades for about 40% of the story. The game is kind of the one-shot cinematic camera, which is a fantastic art style, art direction, really. I didn't realize that until reading this. I guess that's true though. Huh. That's kind of fun. Anyway, the combat of this game is great. The art direction is great. The music of this game is fantastic. The characters are pretty good too. I do think some of them are a little forgettable, but you're not going to forget Kratos, and you're not going to forget Atreus. Freya, you're not going to forget. Bajun, I didn't say his name right. I'm not even going to bother to say his name right. He's not forgettable, and there's 2 orcs that aren't forgettable, and then everyone else, kind of not the greatest. The sea serpent's kind of cool to see. And you get a secret ending for, I think, 100% in this game. I'm not too sure, though. There's a lot of optional objectives in this game. Fantastic game from a combat perspective, from a graphical perspective, from a technical perspective, from a story-wise perspective, from a musical perspective. This game nails it all, man. And it didn't get my game of the year, despite being the only 10 out of 10 game I've ever given in a review. I don't know if it would be now, but nonetheless, God of War comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have God of War 2018 competitor, the Western-themed open-world game, Red Dead Redemption 2. And as I was saying, God of War looks good. This might be the best-looking game of all time. Red Dead Redemption 2 hardly runs on PCs, by the way. Is an open-world game with a fantastic story, a pretty good soundtrack. The voice acting and characters in this game is mind-blowing. The characters in this game are fantastic. Just utterly great, dude. The AI in this game is fantastic. They'll respond. They have daily activities that they go do every single day. Oh my god. There's a multiplayer mode in this game which I think kind of gets overlooked. It wasn't really working at launch, and I don't know anybody that actually plays this game online, but that's okay. The game sold like a crap ton. The gameplay of this game is great. The mission structure is kind of where this game falters, and that's why it's not number 1, because really this game does everything perfect except for mission structure. If the mission structures let you do what you want, this game would be number 1. But it's very linear mission structure in an open world game where you can do literally anything you want with an honor system that changes based on what you do, and you get some slight altercations of the story. Red Dead Redemption 2 is just fantastic. You can play poker, blackjack, dominoes, five-finger fillet. You can just go around and shoot people. You can rob banks. You can go do the side activities. You can have a one system, which I think was a little bit broken at the time. You can hunt. You can hunt for legendary animals. There are so many things you can do in this game, and it's almost perfect. If the mission structure was just a little bit better, this is a perfect 100 out of 100 game. Because I already said the graphics of this game is just insane. Best looking game on the console, better looking than probably some PlayStation 5 games. I cannot stress this enough. Red Dead Redemption 2, if just had a mission structure, would be probably the best game of all time. It doesn't have it. The mission structure is just terrible. But regardless of all that, it's still a fantastic game. It's still worth your money. It's still a massive game. The open world of this game is just crazy. The AI in this game is crazy. The hunting is crazy. The hijacking trains is crazy. The horses is crazy. The attention to detail is crazy. This game is fantastic. Cannot say this enough. I did the review on this game. I would encourage you to check this out. We also did a playthrough of this game. That's something that someone might not know. I think I did it live. So go ahead and check that out if you can find it. I feel like archive live streams are kind of hard to find sometimes. But Red Dead Redemption 2, fantastic game. I cannot stress this enough. For number 4 on our games of the generation list. Coming in at number 3, and this kind of shocked me because the only reason why this is really that high is because the gameplay is so good, I'm still playing it. But coming in at number 3 is Overwatch. Now, Overwatch was considered to be one of the greatest games of all time at launch. It's not better than Team Fortress 2, and I don't know why people think it is. But the presentation of this game is fantastic. It has a very artsy art style. That's a weird way to say that. Cartoony-like art style, but not like super cartoony. Characters in this game are pretty good. It's hard to really develop a personality for some of these characters without a story mode. I'm gonna keep that in there. It's hard to develop characters in this game without a story mode, so they do it with trailers such as Team Fortress 2, which is a heavy influence in this game. Basically this game started a whole genre of these first-person hero shooters that people tried to copy, and nobody did it as good as them. And the reason I know nobody did it as good as them is because this game is still huge. The Overwatch League is massive. Overwatch 2 is supposed to be coming out soon. I think all they're doing is adding the story mode and keeping the same multiplayer in. The gameplay of this game is so good, so ever evolving as well. You have to use teamwork. And if you don't use teamwork, you're going to go nowhere in this game. You have to kind of have an idea what to do in terms of game sense as well. You also still have to be good at aiming. But if you're not good at aiming, you can go be a healer or something. You can still contribute even if you're not the greatest at this game. You just gotta know what you're doing. And if you work with your team, you're gonna be good. There's tanks that are very important. They absorb the damage and they take, you know, people will look at tanks before they look at everyone else. The damage per second, you have to have them to do damage, obviously. And then for healers, well, I mean, they're there to keep your team alive. And you have to work together in this hero shooter style, and if you don't work together, you're gonna get steamrolled. Now there's casuals, there's competitive, and then there's the Overwatch League, which is esports. There's a bunch of maps now, even though I don't think I like most of the maps, but there's a bunch of maps now. There's also a huge community of this game where you can go in and play custom games. There's so much to do in this game, despite just being really a multiplayer only game. And the fact that I'm still playing this after, you know, 4 years is shocking to me. This is one of my go-to multiplayer games, and I don't know if it's replaced Team Fortress 2 as my favorite multiplayer game of all time. It definitely runs better than Team Fortress 2, which is my one problem with Team Fortress 2. But nonetheless, Overwatch comes in at number 3 of my games of generation. This is another 2016 game. I told you there's going to be 2 games in the top 5 in 2016, and we're about to get to the other game as well in 2016. And while that is coming up, Overwatch comes in at number 3 at the best games of the generation.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
at number 2, and this might be a bit of a shocker to you since its sequel came up earlier at number 15. But number 2 is Doom 2016. Yes, I prefer this game over Doom Eternal. That's not really a shot at Doom Eternal, because Doom Eternal is still a great game. It's good enough for number 15. But Doom 2016 is where it's at, my dude. This game is just unrelenting force from the moment you start it. You start up, you say, they're scared of you or whatever, and then you start punching the freaking demons. You pick up your suit and you start shooting. The music of this game is just mind-blowingly good, dude. I cannot stress this enough. Just listening to the soundtrack on its own is enough for me to just rev up my engine, want to run through a brick wall. And this is the other 2016 game, by the way, because 2016 was just a fantastic game in general. The story of this game is perfect. It's not in your face, and even the Doom guy doesn't even like it. The Doom Slayer says, you have to do this, you have to do this, and he picks up the monitor and he throws it away or he punches it. And there's a part of this game where it shows the story as well. There's a part of this game where you're in an elevator at the very beginning, and Samuel Hayden's like, oh, we have to take necessary risks. And he looks down and there's a dead guy on the ground. He punches it, and then you start the game. That is the story of this game. You kill demons on Mars. That's the main story. The humans messed up. You know they messed up. Time to fix their mess. And that's the whole game. That's what it should be. And now we're going into this deep lore in terms of Eternal, which is kind of rubs me the wrong way. Regardless of this, Doom 2016 is just perfect, man. This is the best campaign I've played since Half-Life. Sort of. Best first-person shooter campaign I've played since Half-Life, I should say. The glory kills gets a little repetitive, I won't lie, but this game does the perfect amount of, risk versus reward. In order to do damage and get your health back, you have to be up close to the demons, where they're going to do more damage as well. Every demon you have to attack differently. The pink you have to shoot in the back. The revenant you should probably shoot as rockets. The imps, who cares, just kill them. Zombies, who cares, just kill them. Stuff like that. The guns in this game are amazing. The gore is fantastic. And while it's a little weird that people just kind of spawn up everywhere, it's okay because it keeps the action going. The music ebbs and flows with the combat as well. Nothing's really going on in the combat. The music's going to be kind of low. The combat starts getting absolutely crazy. Well, guess what? The music's going to rev itself up even higher. Ugh! I cannot stress this enough how good the soundtrack is in this game. The soundtrack in this game is in your face and is just as good as the game itself. You're basically playing a concert here where you're doing affects the game. Oh my god, it's so good. And the combat is also so good, and the maps are good. This is one of the best map designs I've ever played in a video game ever. There's secrets, there's puzzles, there's everything around. You don't want to be a first-person shooter? Then, kill everything. Now go back and explore. This game encourages it. This game is so good. And then there's Snap Map, which has a community where people make their own levels, make their own maps, and pretty much makes their own games. And while they're not very good in per se, it's still a great time. Then you have the multiplayer. Now, admittedly, the multiplayer is a little bare bones and basic. I cannot say that enough. But with that being said, it's still okay. It's still fun. It's better than whatever that battle mode was. I cannot say enough about Doom 2016. Doom 2016 is such a good game that if you haven't played it, you should go out and play it right now. I think it's on Game Pass. Play it! Play this game! It's so good! The campaign is so good, man! It's like 10 hours of just pure, unrelenting testosterone, and it's just fantastic. Play this game. Doom 2016 comes in at number 2. Number one is probably not a huge shocker, but number one is the Final Fantasy VII remake. It kind of redefines the word remake, because this isn't a standard remake of a game. It's the first 5 hours or so of the original Final Fantasy VII, and while it follows the story, it also adds its own part to the story. It's kind of a remaking of the actual story itself. So yes, the first 5 hours in that game is represented in this game within 20-25 hours, and they really go into more character detail with some of the side characters. However, they also drop a bomb on us at the very end and make it so we don't know where this game's going to go in the future. We don't know if the later games are going to be the exact same or not as the original game. They're probably not going to be, but there probably will be a little bit. It's a little confusing, and it definitely got us talking. With that being said, this game in general is one of the most gorgeous, if not the most gorgeous game on the PlayStation 4. It runs like a dream. I never crashed. I don't think I really had any bugs in this game either. Oh, that's not true. We did have one bug where I had a character follow the map. The combat in this game is just god tier. And it does have its problems, specifically with enemies that are high up off the screen. It kind of struggles with enemies that are flying enemies or anything like that. But it makes up for this with this active time battle system based off the original, but it still has its own real-time combat at the same time. That is so amazing to me that they were able to mix the modern type of gameplay with the old type of gameplay together. It's just so good. So basically you do an attack and over time your bar fills up, and then when those bars fills up you can do your abilities, you can do your magic, you can do anything, and then you just kind of repeat like that. Every character has their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, you're not going to go running head first with Aerith right to the enemy. That's just stupid. Now you could do that with Barret or Cloud or Tifa or any other characters, but you can't do it with Aerith. She needs to be in the back. She's the magic character. And everyone plays differently. Everyone has their own unique abilities, everyone has their own unique stats, but you can also still play with those because the materia system comes back from the original game, and it's just as good, not better, it's not gonna be better, but it's just as good as the other game, and it hasn't even opened up yet. Like, this game is so good, and the graphics are so good. The story and characters in this game are elevated to 11 compared to what they originally were. I care about Jesse now. I care about Biggs. I still don't care about Wedge, but they tried. Stuff like that. This game is just amazing to me. The combat in this game is great. The story is great. The graphics is great. You go back and play it, it's great. The story gets better when you play it again a second time. It's just fantastic. The end game content, while a little weird, is great. The summons work well in this game. Everything works well in this game. There's no problem besides the combat in the air that struggles. And even the combat in the air, you can get around with the magic and abilities. Just, oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going a little berserk right now, but I cannot stress this enough. This is the best game on the PlayStation 4 hardware. From bosses, to combat, to graphics, to story. This is just so good, and I hope they use this active time system in the future games, because, oh my god, this is so good. The combat is so perfect. If they just made it a little bit easier to hit the aerial enemies, we would be a top 100 out of 100, no problem game. And while I have to take it away from that just a little bit, which is why it's not a 10 out of 10, not 100 out of 100, everything else, it's just like a little blip on the spot. You know what I mean? The missions are good. The story is good. Just almost a perfect game, man. Just like Red Dead Redemption was almost a perfect game. Red Dead had a problem with mission structure. This game has no problem with mission structure. It pads out a little bit here and there, but the padding out makes you learn more about the lore, so it kind of works out. I cannot stress this enough how good Final Fantasy VII Remake is. This is one of the very few games where I was actually hyped for, and not only did it exceed expectations, it blew them out of the water. Everything. I cared about everything in this game, from the characters, the story. Even the dumb moments of the story end up being good at the very end when they explain what was happening. I cannot stress this enough how good this game is. You should go out and buy this game. You should buy, and I think it's 50% right now for the New Year's sale. Might not be by the time this video comes out. It might not be by the time you see this. But oh my god, this game is so good. It's just so fantastic. Every mechanic in this game, every way the things look, just go out and get it, because this is the best game on the PlayStation 4 by far. Whew. So this was pretty long, and I didn't really have a script for any of this. This is mainly me free speaking off the top of my head about things, which is probably why it's a little disjointed at times. But regardless, we got through it, and hopefully this PlayStation 5 era will be just as good, if not better, than the last generation. But now we're done with that. What did you think of this list? What is your own list? What is your favorite game of the PlayStation 4 era / Xbox One era? Comment down below what you think. Like, subscribe.
Thank you for watching.
We're gonna hear that again in the
Like
outro.
video if you haven't
See you
already.
next time.
Subscribe for more content. Comment down below and check the description for links such as the Discord.